Hey fans, good to see you. This is Carlucci Broadcast International. Mike Carlucci with you here on our first official edition of The Bottom Line. And today we have the great one, Richard Boddie. Dr. Boddie, ladies and gentlemen. This man has done so much in his career and through the decades, and politically speaking, a lot of politics, if you will, as well, in a good way, of course. And Richard Boddie, thank you so much for being here, spending some time with us.
Thank you, Mike. Um, I'm stoked just to be here. I used to do this, by the way. I used to have my own radio show
Yes.
in Rochester, New York, and I had a TV show in Syracuse. And as when I got out of law school, I got involved with politics, and some of you may know the name because of the fact that I ran for the United States president nomination to become president of the United States with the Libertarian Party back in 90. I started in 1990 for the 92 election, and I didn't get it, so I ended up running for U.S. Senate in California against Dianne Feinstein, who obviously that was 20-something years ago.
Yeah.
She's still there.
She's still going.
And obviously I lost, and I ran against her in 94 again, and that's when Michael Huffington, the husband of the famous Huffington lady who became a liberal after being a conservative, and started the Huffington, whatever that newspaper was, and sold it for $1 billion.
Huffington Post.
Here it is, Huffington Post.
Yes.
Well, her husband ran for U.S. Senate in 94, and Feinstein again, and I was the difference. My vote count was the difference in an election. I'm not proud of the fact that the Di-Fi won, because to me, Tweedledum and Tweedledummer, they're all the same. It really doesn't make any difference. But
That goes without saying.
but oh well.
Yeah.
But that's basically my political background. I'm a libertarian. One of the we could say it's an endangered species on Earth. There's only about 114 of us on Earth, but I think
seems that way.
Yeah, we're growing,
Uh-huh.
and people are beginning to say, instead of what's a libertarian, they're beginning to say, maybe I like you guys because of some of the stuff that's happening between the election of 16 and the Trump craziness, and
Yes.
and then the liberal and progressive craziness and all of that. A lot of people are stepping back. So libertarians might have an opportunity to be heard, even if the system is rigged. That's what this T-shirt is about.
Yeah.
The debates, presidential debates since '88 have been rigged. It's a deal between the Republicans and the Democrats that say we can't allow any third-party candidates in the debates.
Yeah.
And they were challenged in the court. And Gary Johnson last time got just within a few percentage points of their standard to get into the debates.
Yes.
And somehow he didn't make the 5%. But they're being sued, and the federal court had denied the case during the election time, but now it's been appealed and it's going to be heard because there is collusion between the Republicans and Democrats when it comes to the debates that people see and the millions that are spent to keep fooling the people.
Wow, this is a lot of great information. In fact, you read my mind. I was going to ask you about all this, and you just took the ball and rolled with it. You made it making my life easier here. Now, before we get into some political debate or some chat, if you will, not really debate, a chat. Before you got into politics, you were a very high acclaimed attorney for many years. Give us a little background.
Yeah.
Go a little farther back and tell us a little bit more about that, because I know it's interesting, and I know you have tons of stories. So, nonetheless.
In upstate New York, starting before I graduated even, if any of you had seen the movie with Tom Cruise called Born on the 4th of July, it was about the
Good film.
anti-war movement, and it had a scene or two at Syracuse University where there was a riot, and supposedly Tom Cruise, who played I forget his name, something like that. He was playing a real person.
It started with a C, I know that. It was like Colbert or Kolvik No, it started with a K, I think. Kolvik or Kolchak. Darren McGavin. No, I'm kidding.
No, he was an anti-war person, and they had a big riot at Syracuse.
Yeah.
Well, in real life, I was a part of that revolution.
Yeah.
I was one of the people who said, finally, enough is enough. It was the day after Kent State, where they killed the 4 students. National Guard killed students just inadvertently. And the next day we said, okay, it's time for Syracuse to wake up. We've been trying to get them to do certain things regarding the war and the administration, and we shut the school down. So I became infamous on the 5th of May, 1970. From there, I went back home to Rochester, New York, where I was. And my law business, my law practice was basically, it was started and hopefully criminal, but I was the low man on the totem pole, so they'd send me into the jail at 2 in the morning to interview the clients, the potential clients.
No sleep on that day.
Hey, and then I did a lot of real estate because they don't have escrow companies in New York State. And from there, a specialty I never dreamed of.
Yeah.
Did some federal communications. I had a radio show at the same time back in the early, it had to be early 70s. My show was called Black to White. It was really a cool show, by the way. And I had a TV show at Syracuse before I graduated from law school. It was called Citizen Advocate, and I was an ombudsman. I was the first ombudsman on TV in the country. And then David Horowitz came in as a consumer ombudsman.
Yeah.
So in Rochester, the things I did were basically challenging the status quo, challenging the system, getting my butt kicked. But when you're young and you're idealist and you're committed as an attorney to try to help people, that was my plight. And then finally they beat me up enough that I stopped and I went with the American Arbitration Association, and we ran a thing called National Center for Dispute Settlement, an office of the American Arbitration, where we were taking this whole concept of labor management, collective bargaining, and dispute settlement, and we were putting it into the private sector. Basically, if you had a barking dog situation, which is a misdemeanor by law, well, the two parties are still going to live next door to each other, and the problem is that there could be a fight as it escalates, and the humidity is 100%, it's 95 degrees, and somebody punches somebody. Well, in reality, that's a misdemeanor, but we in Rochester had an agreement with the city court system that the National Center for Dispute Settlement, in these things we called them neighborhood justice centers. We would have arbitration and mediation.
Right.
And I ran that program for about 3 years before the budget tightened up, and they said, well, Richard, you're out of here. And I went with Eastman Kodak Company, which is totally out of my way. And
well, this is where you got heavy into the union representation as well, which is a good thing. Yeah.
Yes, when I was in practice, I did represent a union which was lower than the whale dung. It was called the Hotel Employers and Bartenders Union. That was a toughie. Local 466. Our business manager, Johnny Lito, was a ex-prize fighter, a Golden Gloves fighter. And we had a negotiation with the hotel people once. And we're in the room with all these high-priced people and all the ties and coats, and I'm one of them. And Lito's got a T-shirt on, and he gets mad something that one of the people said, and he came over to the table and he literally punched one of the people in the middle of the negotiation.
Where's the cell phone camera for that? Yeah.
So we didn't
have any then. Yeah, nothing.
Thank God. And so next we're bailing Johnny Lito out of jail. But that was my first union experience of being a part of, once again, representing people who have no voice, and that almost goes to Kaepernick, which is a whole different thing.
We'll chat about that in another segment. Yeah, we'll chat about that in another segment. Yeah, it would have been great if there would have been. At that time, we had cell phones. That would have been just priceless to watch that. By the way, before we continue, I want to say, hey, become a subscriber because we'll be doing more shows. We appreciate your support. And if you have any questions, by all means, just on the comment section, ask us questions for the great Mr. Richard Boddie. Ask some details of his life and all kinds of stuff he's done in his career. He's also a jazz enthusiast, which we'll be chatting at another time, another segment. But if you have questions, and by the way, I'm going to be putting a Twitter page together, and then you can actually have feedback and questions as well as we try to do more of these. But so, my goodness, I mean, you've done so much. We haven't really scratched the surface yet. We want to get into some stuff here with some stuff going on there in the White House. But before we do that, so you moved on a good pace, a great career of in the law business, and then you got going here representing unions and laborers and things like that. Then you became a professor teaching a numerous amount of subjects. And what were the main subjects you taught on the college level?
Okay, basically over the years I've been an adjunct professor, adjunct faculty person right after I graduated from law school in 1970. So in effect I taught for over 40 years at various institutions, starting at Monroe Community College in Rochester. It started with business law. And then from there it evolved to criminal justice. I taught sociology at Rochester Institute of Technology. Then when I came out here, I taught labor law at UC Irvine Extension. I taught negotiation skills at National University. But when I finally settled down after teaching everything everywhere except science, I came to Coastline College, and I was teaching basically American government political science. And I also taught some history and some business law. But,
yeah. Well, and besides teaching that fantastic subject of history and political science, you were practicing some of your comedy shtick in class, right?
I mean, yes.
You're testing out some of your material. I'm sure the students loved it.
Oh, yes. Yeah, that's one of the reasons I finally getting away from teaching is because it went from a live show now to a handheld device. And I never mind with the laptops and the students are looking up what I'm saying to prove that they're trying to say, well, this guy's crazy. Yeah. And then somebody says, oh, no, look at here. This guy, what? See what he did? They did so-and-so. Yeah. But then the handheld device by itself, it just killed it. So there's no dialogue. They weren't even listening to my jokes. They didn't care whether I could do impressions or not.
Yeah, they get all their information so quickly with these darn things right here, you know. So you and of course you were doing some shtick on the side at comedy clubs. We did a thing together. We won't get into the story till later. That'll be another segment. But the thing is, when you're not a big A-lister comedian, you don't make any money. But that's why when you do it in your class, you're getting paid for it anyway. So you might as well get paid. Say, yeah, I got paid. I'm a paid comedian. I do it in my class that I teach, though. You know, so
and you can practice your material too.
Yeah,
that's a cool.
Yeah, test it out. Yeah.
I'm just thinking about the gig that we did.
Yes.
I got to tell you, we'll talk about this later in other shows, but there are more comics than there was audience that night.
We gave you a little teaser. What he just said there, it was an open mic with comedians, and there was more comedians than there was audience. So let's say there was 7 comedians. Yes. There was like 5 people. So more details. Yeah.
That's including the waitress. And
the bartender and the bouncer too. Yes. So that'll be another segment. But yeah. So anyway, nonetheless, so a fantastic career, and it's still going strong. And we're not going to tell you how old this gentleman is because he looks fantastic. He looks 20 years younger than he is, but nonetheless, a fantastic career, many decades. The law business, radio, television, community affairs, public affairs, and radio and TV, and music. He's a jazz enthusiast, and of course, he's a teacher and a union representative. And he, of course, was really good with grievances here, especially for Coastline, the Coast District, Coast CCA, the vice president grievance counselor as well. So a lot of stuff. Mr. Boddie, and what I want to do is just jump right into it here. We have a certain gentleman, if you want to call him that, in the White House, and there's a tug-of-war on if he's doing a good job or is he doing a bad job, is he doing a crazy job. We all know he's a crazy personality. That's just the way he's been for 35, 40 years, but he got in there, but there are some things going on. I mean, there's too many to list. We'd be here till midnight, but nonetheless, the new topic is here. And by the way, you are watching The Bottom Line on Carlucci Broadcast International. Mike Carlucci, Richard Boddie, and back to they call him Mr. 45 or 45th President Donald Trump. And the topic is to impeach or to not impeach. Give me your take. We'll just go right into it.
Yeah, we've been debating that, and a lot of my socialist and Democrat friends say, get him out of there, because they didn't want him in there anyway.
Yeah.
So they're trying to say, okay, we should impeach him. And on the other side, the Republicans are mum when they should be saying something, but they have to show unity and all the rest. As a libertarian, I can tell the truth. Bottom line, we'd love to have him impeached, but the problem is he won't be impeached because the United States Senate will never impeach him. The nature of the constitutional impeachment process is simply that the House can bring the charges and they can have the evidence shown and they can do all the things like a trial, but the Senate convicts. And even the 2 impeachment cases in our history, one was Andrew Johnson, who followed Lincoln. And the only reason he was there because Lincoln got assassinated. He was impeached, but he wasn't kicked out of office because the Senate didn't do it. And the same with Bill Clinton. He was impeached, but they didn't kick him out of office. Well, who kicks you out of office? The Senate makes that determination. So in this case, you have a Senate that's the same party as the crazy guy, and there's no way he's going to do that. I was saying a couple months ago, I thought that the Donald was just going to one day just say, I quit, and walk, because that's never happened before, and he's such an egotist, narcissist.
Yeah, he won't. Yeah, he won't do that.
I figured he would just walk away, but I think his narcissism is too heavy. The problem for him is that as the evidence grows and as the investigation shows, he might just be indicted. But the problem is our system doesn't allow you to indict the chief executive officer, the president, while he's in office. So that does away with that, even if it showed he murdered somebody. There's no way that our system allows the president to be indicted for a crime. That's what the impeachment process is about, high crimes and misdemeanors, etc. Well, even if he did that, so he's not going to be impeached because there's no way to bring the action. Let's just presume that somebody figured something out with some constitutional glitch and said, now we're going to have an impeachment on this guy. Well, they impeach him, and then the Senate, that is Republican and may probably still be, in spite of what the Democrats want, they would not kick him out. They'd say, we need this crazy guy to keep doing what he's doing, because some people are benefiting by his craziness.
Yeah. Go figure. Yeah.
My guess, we were discussing this the other day with some friends. I said, well, he's going to just quit in the middle. I said, no, he wouldn't, because then he could be indicted and convicted of the crimes that he's committed. I said, yeah, but what if they have this deal? Because I'm thinking ahead, because that's a part of the lawyer's thinking. I said, yeah, but he's got a guy who's Pence, who's going to be his VP, it's already set up for him to be pardoned.
Yeah.
Would have to be, because it's already an experience in our history of politics. Nixon was pardoned by Ford.
Right.
That's the only reason he won.
It's the next guy to do it.
Yeah, they said, okay, he can be pardoned. So Nixon goes off. Oh, let me say this.
Here we go, the impressions.
I'm not a crook. I'm not really that. It's Dick Nixon in 2020.
Not as good as Dan Aykroyd, but pretty good. So.
And I pity the fool that don't know that too, sucker.
By the way, speaking of impressions, we'll stay on the topic here in a matter of seconds, but we want to talk about you possibly doing impressions and filling in for Ed Bradley of 60 Minutes fame. We'll talk about that in a second, but let's go back to this impeachment process and the to impeach or not to impeach, the pardons, the whole thing, the whole mishmash. Pick it up where you left off.
Okay, basically, there's no way that Donald Trump would ever be put out of office under our constitutional system. If he would have quit, he would then be pardoned, I suspect.
Yeah,
but
next
there's another possibility, and we haven't had it since John Kennedy and McKinley and Abraham Lincoln. But I won't go there, because then they'll shut down my life. But what a weird situation our politics on the national level has become when you think about the two major candidates that were running in 2016 and the one, Gary Johnson, who was probably the best of all. They didn't let him into the scene. Most people don't even know what a libertarian is. But Johnson served as the governor of the state of New Mexico for 2 terms. Of the 3 people, he's the only one that knew how to govern from an executive position in an American government system.
The problem is it's like Coke and Pepsi, Republicans, Democrats, and then that RC Cola, say, or store-bought Shasta Cola. That's the problem. You know?
But I think that the break is coming because the Republican Party, I suspect, is going to go the route of the Whig Party of the 19th century. The Whig Party had elected presidents. They had people in Congress. In fact, Abe Lincoln was a House of Representatives from, I don't know, Illinois or Indiana or one of those, as a Whig. Most people don't realize that. So he served in the House as a Whig, and pretty soon that party died. Why? Because they were doing dumb stuff like the Republicans are doing.
Well, here's the situation now. We've got 2020 around the corner, and there's going to be a string of names brought up, the nominees, if you will. Who do you like? And talk about both parties.
Yeah,
if you will. And of course, the Libertarian Party will probably have Gary Johnson, right?
No, the elect's going to be Bill Weld, so I won't be voting for that.
Okay.
Because Weld is basically a defrocked Republican
who
who endorsed Hillary Clinton as the VP candidate for the Libertarian Party in 2016.
Wow.
So now he's putting together his group of people to try to become the nominee for 2020. So
Right.
that immediately says to me, I'm not going to vote for that dude at all, because
Okay.
Bill Weld is a fraud. As far as the Republicans, it doesn't matter, because whoever they have is going to still be, well, probably be Trump if he hasn't died, been shot, or left, or done something stupid.
Or impeached.
Or impeached,
Yeah.
right.
Mhm.
But assuming it's Trump, then you look at who the Democrats could put in who could defeat the Donald. Well, if they had used this person before, Trump would not be president. Joe Biden, who was a good friend of mine,
Yes.
the problem Joe faced was a pretty monumental problem. His son Beau had brain cancer. And during the time when the campaigns would have been going on for 2016, Joe is wondering how he's going to help Beau in his crisis, and that's pretty draining. He already lost Nelia, his first wife and
Right.
daughter, in a car wreck
Yeah.
back when he first got out of law school, and so he had two sons left, and one of those two is now with brain cancer. So the timing of that was not good. But I was in Cambridge for granddaughter's graduation a year ago, and Joe spoke the day before the graduation, and he always, even though he's a friend, he's a tremendous presenter, tremendous speaker, and he's authentic. And one of the thing that made me proudest was the fact that not only did I know him, but I said, he the man. He had Secret Service. He has a great salary. He has a tremendous personality. 2 foundations at University of Pennsylvania and at his school, University of Delaware. But the bottom line is, I think that he is in a position, if he's stupid, to win the presidency in 2020. A lot of people call him Crazy Joe and all that stuff. He's the most authentic candidate to come along in many years, other than Ron Paul, that I can think of. And maybe I'm biased because I know both of them personally.
Right.
But Joe's still alive. He's 74 years old. He's in top shape. He's like a rock star. I mean, I was shocked. I couldn't even get close to him. The Secret Service guys wouldn't let me, but the ladies with the autograph pins and the oh Joe, they could get close. So they were looking at me as if they didn't know that I know him.
It's either Mick Jagger or Joe Biden, right?
Yeah, there it is. So I'm thinking that 2020, I would support Joe, even as a libertarian. I would still support Joe, even though he and I don't agree politically. But I know one thing for sure, that he is a authentic human being, and he's a person who doesn't forget who his friends are.
And he's a basic politician, too.
Oh yes, and he's a very successful politician.
Yeah.
He was running for U.S. Senate when we were still in law school. People said, Joe, you're crazy. You're the last in your class? How are you going to become a senator? He said, I'm from Delaware. They have 2 senators, only 1 House of Representatives. He says, so the odds are better for me to win a Senate seat than a House seat because of population. He says, secondly, my dad is the largest Chevy dealer in the state of Delaware. So my name is on the plate. Biden Motors is all over the place. And he was right. He's a name recognition. And Joe has the ability to talk the talk. And he pulled it off correctly. And for 35 years, he took the train from Wilmington to to Washington, D.C. at the train station and go back home like most people do for regular jobs. 30 plus years to keep his stability. And then when Obama named him vice president, I figured the next time, the second go round, they definitely wouldn't have him as the VP. But quiet as it's kept, Joe's presence protected Obama. Because if Obama got somehow got offed, Joe Biden would be president. A lot of people said, no, that we don't want that. So keep him here as our VP. We don't want Joe. But they do want him now because they've got a comparison of the guy with the funny orange hair.
Yeah. And the bizarre skin color, too, as well.
Oh, my God, what amazing.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. So, will we see any more in the likes of Bernie Sanders, you think?
Bernie will probably pass away before that or have a stroke. I don't. Even if he's is alive, he's old. He's old, like I am, but his old is a lot slower old than mine. A lot of people are following that concept, but they don't understand history. They don't understand Venezuela or North Korea or thousands and thousands of examples of what's wrong with that kind of thinking. No, but Bernie could still be in the mix, but he's not going to. Once again, he's like the Royal Crown Cola or the
RC Cola or store-bought.
Yeah, the store-bought Shasta.
Yeah.
And he's a bit worse than we because the philosophy that he's talking about has been shown over and over and over and over and over and over again to oppress people and to not do what it says.
Yes.
Nobody's tried ours yet.
Right.
Or those who have. Ireland did back in 1000 BC, AD or whatever, and it worked. Libertarian ideas worked until somebody got on a boat and came over and says, "We want to tell you how to run your life now." But the framers of our country, the founders, were libertarians, basically. The Declaration of Independence was libertarian.
Right.
But people who are power brokers are always looking how to get in, and then they're trying to change it to pull all the power to the people who are called politicians. And I don't respect politicians at all.
Yeah. Well, we got a little more time here left. I do want to ask you, move from the White House and that part of the government. Let's look into the local government here. We're in the state of California. Things are happening there in the capital, there in Sacramento. Current Governor Brown doing some shady things, if you will, some say. But now we have two gentlemen probably go head to head. We have is it Cox and Gavin Newsom.
Yeah.
What's your take on that?
I think that Cox is going to surprise. He's going to do. I think he's going to do Muhammad Ali. I will shock the world.
Yeah.
I will shock them. Because even slow people realize California is in so much debt, and it's such a third world nation with very, very rich and very, very poor and very few in the middle, as a direct result of the game that's been played in Sacramento since Arnold left. In fact, when Arnold was there, he was helping play the game because his wife was talking in his ear, and he was compromising on stuff that no Republican would ever have compromised on. So it's a one-party system in California, which has bankrupted this state already, and nobody wants to admit that. And these people who are doing it are taking their money and running. And Newsom is the forefront of that kind of craziness. He's a Bernie Sanders. He's like the chick from New York who was getting all the play, the Puerto Rican chick or Dominican chick. But the bottom line is, I think there are enough people who do vote, who are getting ripped, are saying, okay, I have two choices. I'm young enough that if I stay here, I'm done. So I got to leave and move to Austin, Texas, or to Utah, or get the hell out of here.
Billings, Montana.
Yeah, people are leaving like crazy. Or I stay and I fight, and the fight is people who say, I don't want to leave, and I'm going to challenge this one-party system. And I think that's going to happen between now and the next election. Not talking about the midterm elections, because California will still be going down the tubes by then. But between 2018 and 2020, you're going to see a shift where the Republicans are going to come back and balance this thing out. Yeah. Or the whole thing will collapse and then you'll start from scratch. And that's a possibility most people don't really want to talk about because our monetary system is shot.
Yeah. Well, and Newsom wants to put a format together to give free health care to everyone, even for citizens who are not here legally as well.
Right.
So.
Yeah, but how do you give free health care when you already have a $20 billion deficit? How do you give free health care when you have people who are in pension plans who aren't going to get their pensions because the thing is so stacked?
It's draining out.
It's a drain. My friend Steve Greenhut, who does a column, and he's a syndicated writer. He's in the Orange County Register every Sunday, but he used to be on, in fact, the Register as an editorial writer. He in effect has studied the commitment dollars that are out there right now and what's supposed to come. no matter who the politician is, if they stay firm to who has to be paid based upon the promises of pensions, this whole thing's going to collapse. It's going to collapse like a deck of cards, and we're going to have some serious new things going on that we haven't seen in many decades.
Wow. Well, we can go all the way till midnight. We have so much to talk about. You have such a soiree of fantastic information, and we're running out of time here. But I do want to do a couple quick things. By the way, I was fiddling over here in the other computer. Yes, it was Ron Kovic. Remember the board of 4th of July?
Yes.
So Ron Kovic was the real life person played by Tom Cruise,
That's
and
right.
you mentioned the story about dealing with that back
Yeah.
then. But before we close, I do want to just close it out with the details about when Ed Bradley had passed away. He's one of the main anchors of 60 Minutes for many years on CBS, and you were approached to possibly
The opposite.
fill in or do some
Right.
appearances.
Yes. It was sort of the opposite of that. Don Hewitt, who was the producer and founder of CBS 60 Minutes, is from New Rochelle, New York, where all my father's family and my dad, of which there were 20 children in my dad's family, Hewitt siblings, all went to New Rochelle High School, and Don Hewitt grew up with my family, so he knew who I was.
Yeah.
When Ed Bradley died, I solicited Hewitt. I called him and left a message for him. I said,
Oh,
hey,
you went, okay. I thought it was
you
the other way
need to
around, yeah.
you need to talk to me because you don't have any black guy on there now, and I look like I look like Ed Bradley.
Yes, without the earring, of course.
Yeah. And he, I was sitting in a cubicle at Coastline, and the call comes, and they said, Don Hewitt. No, he left a message.
Oh.
He said, Dick Boddie, this is Don Hewitt, and could you get back to me? I said, oh, wow, okay. So I called him back, and we talked, and he said, he says, you're quite qualified to do the show because you have television experience. He said, the problem is, and you also have a good point regarding the fact that Ed Bradley is now gone, and we need to have somebody perhaps who is ethnically the same. He said, the problem with you is that you are political, and that's not too good for the role we want to have played.
Yeah.
He said, I knew Ed Bradley personally for 26 years and have to this day no idea of what his politics was. I said, okay, I can appreciate that, Don, but let me do two things. You look up and Google me and see more stuff about me. I will send you a demo tape to show you that I can do Andy Rooney just as well as Ed Bradley. So what I'm saying is, let me do Andy Rooney when he retires, and I won't touch any politics.
Yeah.
So, and then you might change your mind about my ability as to do politics. Lo and behold, Hewitt dies. Hewitt dies. I think Rooney died first. No, Hewitt died first, and then Rooney died.
All about timing.
Yeah. Yeah, so and we were going to have it sent right from the green screen at Coastline where Jerry, whatever Jerry's name is,
Jerry,
the one that does the technology stuff where John Giaconetta used to be.
Jerry Hine.
Right.
Yeah,
and they had the
Jerry
green
Hine.
screen in there, and we could do a show right there.
Yeah.
And Ted Bowler said, you could send it to them online. You can do this commentary, the 3 to 5 minute commentary, and never leave the building.
Yeah, it's the greatness of technology these days. You can do anything. Like right now, we're on a ship near the Arctic Sea. No, I'm kidding. We're here in the offices of Carlucci Broadcast International. Well, Mr. Boddie, it has been a thrill. And before we do close, Richard, by the way, comes from a fabulous family, just a long line of productive. You have, 3 daughters or 4 daughters?
3 daughters.
3 daughters, yeah. Tell us about them real quick.
Yeah, I got 3 daughters and 5 grandsons, and I have my wife has 10 grandkids and 2 greats.
Yes.
So we have family gatherings are pretty heavy duty. And I come from a family. My dad was one of 20 siblings, and his mother was the first African American graduate of East Stroudsburg State University, which back in 1904 was called East Stroudsburg Normal School in Pennsylvania. But my dad educated also. My mom and dad were musicians. I have my family background. If you check Boddie And we don't say Boddie because it's a double consonant.
Double D's.
If you check out the Boddie clan, if it comes from Jacob Benjamin Boddie from Rocky Mount, North Carolina, that's our line. And there's a whole lot of us who ironically, mostly are teachers or professionals. And I'm fortunate to be a part of that family. When I was younger, I didn't care. When I was a young adult, I didn't want to be. But as I grew older and looked up and said, "Hey, man, you're almost 100 years old. So you got to act like you're a mature guy." So what do you mean? Hey, fun old guy.
Hey, paisano. Che cosa fai? Yeah. Well, Mr. Boddie, Richard Boddie, it's been great chatting with you. Like I said, we can keep going, but we have to abruptly leave temporarily. But we're going to have more topics later on. We'll have some more shows, a weekly thing. In fact, our next show, little tease, we're going to jump out of the politics for a bit, and we're going to talk about, because I'm a James Bond aficionado, so it's the James Bond phenomenon, which has been here through, 5 decades or more. And there's the rumor that they want to move the character, which the foundation was for James Bond, as a Caucasian, but there's rumors they want to move it into a different means of ethnic flavor. Idris Elba has been, of course, teased to be the new Bond. We're going to chat about that in the next episode here of The Bottom Line. My name is Mike Carlucci. Thank you, Richard Boddie, once again for your time. And until next week, remember to always search and dig deep, because you'll find the bottom line. Until next time, have a great week. We'll see you soon. And by the way, don't forget to subscribe, and questions, make comments. We'll look for them. Thank you, and again, have a great week. See you soon.